Okay, thanks everybody. And hello. It's really good to see so many people here. I appreciate that you're taking time out of the day to join us and find out about the Anti-Racism Toolkit. So we're really excited to finally launch this project. We've been working on it for over a year now, since January 2021. And thank you to Alice in Montreal for coming up with the idea of doing this project and proposing it to VMS. And to Adrian Carter, I don't know if Adrian's here today, but it was Adrian Carter Vicar who first proposed the format that we're using, and we adapted it based on the work of the Institutes for the Healing of Racism. And that, we started off, it's important to have a concept and a philosophy, and that had the concept that racism is a social ill based on ignorance and fear, and that people can become forces for unity and for healing in their communities. So it's been a really great experience putting it together. There were a lot of good people involved, and we're happy with the results. And now we're at the point where we actually need to get it, it's the most important of all, to get it out into the community. So we're not sure, is this going to be the hard part or the easy part? And that's why it's encouraging to see so many people who signed up for this event today. There were about 90 who signed up and who are interested in learning about this. And we're really hoping that people will take it and run with it and put it to good use. We're going to go over the contents of the toolkit in a minute. We'll do an overview. And before we do that, I'd like to introduce the project team. So there's Ivan, who many of you may know, who's co-facilitating today. But Ivan, I'll let you say a few words and introduce yourself.
I'd just like to take a moment to thank you all for coming today. And to know that, racism is one of those things that we kind of push over here and we don't talk about, but we know through conversations and dialogue and today's information highway, we need to have those conversations. It was nice to have a conversation in the community, and Mrs. Beatty, who was a school teacher out of Prince George, she moved down south, and she had asked if I'd be interested in joining a new project, and she had introduced me to Sheila and Alice, and Musa was with us at the time, and I jumped on board and said, "Can you send a resume?" And they asked me if I could sit with them on their team and to help guide the process. And it's been an eye-opener, rather than just beating it up in the community. Actually have a tool and a process that is very much needed in our communities. But I'd like to acknowledge all of you, and to know that the conversation moving ahead needs to continue to share the information with your communities and your networks. But I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional territory that I'm on. My friends, I call them my friends and my family from the local Lake Tenay Nation in northern British Columbia, Prince George, and on their ancestral lands and traditional territory, and as you as well on the traditional territories you're on. To acknowledge that too as well, and to send a blessing to all of you, and to thank you for being part of this conversation today.
Thanks, Ivan. And Alice, would you like to introduce yourself? Alice is taking care of the tech piece today, so we might not hear too much from her, but she's a very important part of this project.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. This is a really exciting day, a great pleasure to share this toolkit with you all. It's been a lot of work, which involves some of you on the call, but very much it really started from early days conversation and the recognition that this is something that all Canadians need to address, and the reality that a lot of leaders in the community, religious leaders, non-religious leaders, have the social capital, the strength, the networks, and the leadership to start a lot of this conversation. So that's why we gathered, to create something to help all of you in the different communities that you belong to really engage with racism and what anti-racism work looks like. And so we're so thrilled that there's approximately 50 of us all here on the call who are committed, and those who might be watching this video later, committed to doing anti-racism work in Canada. It's such important work for so many people, for everyone really. And so thank you so much for being here. As mentioned, I'll be taking a quiet back seat most of the time today because I'll be taking care of the tech, checking on the chat room and all that stuff. But in terms of the project and other work that I do, I am the executive director and co-founder of the Center for Civic Religious Literacy. We work nationally, but I'm joining you today from Chukchoge, which is the unceded Kanien'kehá:ka territory of Montreal. So that's it's a privilege to be on this land and to be with all of you. So with that, I'll pass it back to Sheila.
Thanks, Alice. And we're missing Musa Magassa today, who was also a big part of this project. This is a specialist in anti-racism education, equity, diversity, and human rights at the University of Victoria. And unfortunately, he's in the process of moving right now, so he's very busy, but I want to thank him. And for myself, I'm Sheila Flood. I'm the executive director of the Victoria Multi-Faith Society. And I would like to acknowledge before we start that we're on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples of the Esquimalt and the Songhees nations. Just to go over the agenda for today, we'll be doing a general overview of the toolkit and then modeling the first of the 8 workshops, which is called the Human Family, to show you the format and how it works. And the components of the workshop are the opening agreements, there are 2 short videos, breakout rooms to discuss a few questions, and then coming back together again for the debriefing. And so that is the normal format for a workshop. But today, since we're doing the introduction, we will have time for questions and answers and comments before we end at 3:30. And we'd also like to invite you to post questions and comments in the chat at any time. So right now, we have a little recorded overview of the toolkit that Alice is going to show us. And it's about 6 minutes, and it goes over what the toolkit is for and what it's all about. The Learning Anti-Racism Toolkit is the result of 15 months of work by the Victoria Multi-Faith Society and the Center of Civic Religious Literacy. There were 2 advisory groups and 22 reviewers and funding support from the Vancouver Foundation and BC Multiculturalism. Early on in the project, we decided that we would do the toolkit from a positive perspective, focusing on the qualities we want to encourage, such as the ones you see here: kindness, inclusivity, diversity, and humanity. The graphic of the hummingbird was chosen because of its significance in Indigenous culture. It has various meanings, including health, joy, and harmonious relationship. In the Pacific Northwest, there's a hummingbird legend whose lesson is that each person has gifts to give, a lesson we very much believe in. Our other goals for the project were to create a tool that would be widely accessible, good for any type of group, regardless of age or education or background. We wanted something easy to use with clear step-by-step instructions, and we wanted it to appeal to all learning styles. To achieve that, a great number and variety of online resources and media were used, and discussion questions were designed to promote positive conversations, drawing people together. We had to ask ourselves why we're doing this and what we want to come out of it. So the first sentence here is a sort of mission statement: to find ways to create an inclusive environment where everyone belongs, everyone contributes, and all are considered worthy of respect. To align with this, we chose to encourage insight, empathy, and listening. We emphasized respect and the need to be kind and compassionate as we learn with and from each other. This also motivated us. These are statistics on hate crimes between 2012 and 2019. The bars represent the number of hate crimes, with the first group representing race, the second group religion, the third group sexual orientation, and so on. Each category of hate crime is pretty consistent in its prevalence year over year. So you can see For race or ethnicity, with 2012 in blue, 2013 in orange, through to 2019 in brown, the numbers are not going down. Faith-related hate crimes in the next group were actually worse in the last 3 years shown here than between 2012 and 2016. The toolkit includes 8 workshops: a general workshop on racism, followed by Islamophobia, anti-Asian racism, antisemitism, 2 workshops on anti-Indigenous racism, and 2 on anti-Black racism. Each workshop can be done by itself, but we hope that most people will want to do the entire set. For example, 1 workshop per week for 8 weeks, or whatever schedule suits the group. Each one can be done in 90 minutes, but we recommend 2 hours to have enough time to go over all the questions. We also encourage inviting guests or co-facilitators when possible. For example, someone from the Muslim community for the Islamophobia workshop. If you have a guest, you may want to include extra time for questions and answers. Any person can start a group, whether it's among friends, with students, employees, families, spiritual communities, or any other type of group. A facilitator's guide is included with the toolkit so that any interested person can use it to facilitate. Or, depending on your circumstances, you could find a trained facilitator in your community. If you happen to be a trained facilitator yourself, you may want to offer the series and your services. Our licensing agreement allows facilitators to charge an honorarium. The format for each workshop is straightforward. They can be done online or in person. Participants are asked to do some homework in preparation for the workshop, normally consisting of 1 or 2 short items, plus 1 or 2 from a selection of other material that each person can choose from. This supplementary material consists of videos, TED Talks, TV shows, movies, articles, websites, and an occasional book. The more material the person has time to view, the better, but it's very flexible. People will choose different items and will bring that knowledge into the discussions during the workshop. The workshop itself starts with 2 short introductory videos. These are followed by questions to be discussed in small groups. After the small group discussions, the facilitator brings people back together for some centering quotes and the debriefing questions. The space used is up to the group, since some may be online, others in person, some may be small groups, and others might be quite large. But in all of those cases, small breakout rooms are encouraged, ideally around 4 to 6 people, so that everyone can participate in the conversation and to allow time for people to respond to each question. We've already covered most of the points here, except for the last one, actionable, that there should be concrete change resulting from these workshops. Obviously, change begins in the heart. We want people to learn with each other and from each other, and we hope that this will lead to change on many levels. During the debriefing discussions, participants are consistently asked how they can contribute to change. Each person will know far better than we do how this might be done in their situations, in their place of work or school or community, which is why creative reflection is encouraged. We would like to thank our funders, advisory group members, and reviewers for their encouragement and assistance in creating this toolkit. This is going to be the first workshop in that series of the 8. And we're going to talk about racism from a general point of view, rather than focusing on a specific type of racism. To start, we're going to start with the opening agreements. It's an important part where the participants will learn what's expected and what the tone will be, and the group facilitator has a large role to play here. They set the tone, they set the boundaries. So I'm going to turn this over right now to Ivan so he can explain a little bit about those agreements.
These agreements, these are recommended guidelines that group may want to build and adapt to their needs. So there's leaves room for some flexibility. They're designed to be used for sessions or even as a written agreement. 7 key practices to maintain the quality of the discussions. Promote the value and practice of respect. That's important, that everybody feels like they're they're acknowledged, and to respect where people are at, their boundaries. Maintain confidentiality, of course. Use of I statements. And also there's, as many of us are in the field of to practice active listening, have some empathy and compassion. Permission to pass when we're going around in a circle, if we use a circle format, that it's okay. You don't necessarily have to, you're still participating, but you may not want to converse at the time. The importance of self-care, that's really important. You may come in taking this workshop, and you're having a hard day, or you've gone through some stuff, and you're just being present, and that's okay. That's looking after yourself. And promoting a brave space, and that sacred space. If you're sitting, if you're sitting near someone that has an energy that's a little different than yours, it doesn't mix. Sometimes you may want to move yourself into a different position or different place when you're in the room. But it's just, just to have, just keep in mind of that, your space and how you process things may be different than the next person, and to have all these things in mind, listening, and you may be, you can leave the room if you need to, just to give yourself having those options. So but most important is that we're sharing the information, to one another, sharing with each other in a good way. Hi.
Thanks, Ivan. That's perfect. So in starting the first workshop, if you're the facilitator, or whoever the facilitator is, that person would do introductions if the group doesn't already know each other, and then they would do the opening agreements. So then, and we're thinking the opening agreements would be pretty fully explained. As you can see on this page, there are explanations for each one of those items that Ivan went over, and that's part of the toolkit. So maybe for the first session, those would be more fully explained, and then just maybe just briefly mentioned and repeated for the workshops after that. And each workshop starts with at least 2 very short introductory videos, like 2 or 3 minutes each. The ones we're using today, one is from the Smithsonian. I think that's the next slide, Alice, and it's just over 4 minutes long. And the second one was done by a company called Momondo that conducted 16 hours of video, and they put it together. It's called the DNA Journey, and it's just over 5 minutes. Now this slide is showing 2 YouTube links, and those links are given in the workshop, and you could choose to live stream them, but just a note of caution that it doesn't always work well when you're showing videos to a group, as we're all getting lessons in tech this year. So we really recommend that you download the introductory videos to whatever computer you're going to be using to avoid interruptions in the streaming. And also, if you take them straight from YouTube, you might get ads, and you don't really want that. So, but if you download the videos first to your computer, then you avoid that problem. So we're going to actually show you these 2 videos. They're not too long, and they will form the basis for some of our breakout room discussions afterwards. So we will start with that first video, if everybody's ready.
Every person living on Earth today belongs to the same species, Homo sapiens. And humans worldwide have always been curious about our origins.
De onderdrukken somers.
Woher kommen wir?
हम कहाँ से आए हैं?
Sisi tunatoka wapi?
我们从哪里来?
من أين نحن نأتي?
Where do we come from?
¿De dónde venimos? We can now trace our origins back at least 6 million years to Africa, where the earliest humans evolved. Several early human species emerged there and survived in a variety of environments and climates before evolving into new species or going extinct. About 2 million years ago, some populations of early humans began to spread beyond Africa. Over hundreds of thousands of years, populations moved into Asia, where they faced the challenges of yet new environments and climates. New species continue to evolve and eventually go extinct. Then, about 200,000 years ago, a new species evolved in Africa. These were the first modern humans, the first members of our own species, the ancestors of every human being alive today. We can all trace our DNA back to these African origins. Over time, populations of Homo sapiens spread throughout Africa, into Europe and Western Asia. In some of these places, early human species lived on the verge of extinction. This journey of Homo sapiens began during challenging times. There were extreme droughts and monsoons in Africa, and other environmental upsets there and in Asia. At one point, our species' population was reduced to no more than 10,000 adults. We nearly became extinct. But we are an adaptable species. Our ability to use our human traits to meet new challenges enabled us to survive. While earlier human species became extinct, modern humans continue to spread around the world. By about 17,000 years ago, Homo sapiens was not only a worldwide species, we were the sole surviving human species. We left behind a trail of fossils, evidence of our epic worldwide journey. Like some earlier humans, we evolved differences in skin color and hair texture as we adapted to different environments. But these differences are only skin deep. They fall along a continuum and do not separate modern humans into the categories some people call races. The DNA of all modern humans is 99.9% identical. You are part of this 6 million year story of adaptation and survival. It is written in the language of your genes, in every cell of your body. With the billions of other humans living today, you can say,
Mes visi vienos rūšies.
Sisi wote ni wanadamu.
我们都是同一种生物。
Somos todos uma só espécie.
हम सब एक ही प्रजाति के हैं.
Wir sind alle von einer Art.
Somos todos una especie. We are all one species.
So this is the Momondo video, everybody. This is the one that's 16 hours condensed down to 5 minutes.
I'm proud to be English. My family have served and we've defended this country and we've been to war for this country.
I'm really patriotic about Bangladesh.
Well, I am 100% Icelandic, yeah, definitely.
This is a Kurdish wedding with my mom in the traditional Kurdish clothes.
We're just proud black, so that's it.
Yeah, I think we are probably the best country in the world, if I'm honest.
Think about other countries and other nationalities in the world. Are there any that you don't feel you get on with well or you won't like particularly?
Germany. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Germans.
You might think they're a little bit...
Particularly India and Pakistan, probably, because of the whole, the conflict.
Because I have this side of me that's like, that hates Turkish people. Not people, but the government. But French?
No. We're just the best, it's just fact.
I'm more important than you. I don't know you, but in my opinion, I am strong and I am more important than a lot of people.
How would you feel about taking a journey based on your DNA?
Yeah, I feel very intrigued.
What could you possibly tell me that I don't know?
So do you know how DNA works? So you get half from mum and half from dad, so 50% from each of them, and they get 50% from their parents, and back and back and back. And all those little bits of your ancestor, they filter down to make you, you. I need you to spit in this tube for me. And you spit up to the little black line.
That's a lot of spit.
Right, the story of you is in that tube. What's it gonna tell me?
It's gonna be, oh yeah, you're French, and wait, your grandparents are French, and wait.
100% Bengali.
Solid Iraqi.
I'm Cuban.
You're gonna tell me that I'm English, like I've told you.
Jay, can you come down and join us?
I'm a little bit nervous, I have to say.
So you ready to find out your results? Will you read it out to us, please?
Wow, look at me. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Shit, I didn't expect that.
All of them.
Whoa. No.
Caucasus, which was Turkish?
Yeah.
Eastern Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece.
I'm 32% British.
What? Great Britain, 30%. Can we 5% German?
I'm Irish.
Yeah.
So I'm a Muslim Jew.
Great Britain, 11%. Are you sure these results are mine?
Eastern Europe?
Iceland has definitely moved closer to Europe now.
I'm gonna go a bit far right now, but this should be compulsory. There would be no such thing as like extremism in the world if people knew their heritage like that. Like, who would be stupid enough to think of such thing as like a pure race?
In a way, we're all kind of cousins, in a broad sense. In a much more direct sense, you have a cousin in this room. Turn around and guess who it is. Wash?
Yeah. What's that?
Why don't you come down here and meet your cousin?
God, this is the best.
Did you know that?
I didn't know I did. This is like, my heart's pounding right now, I swear to God. We met.
Jay from everywhere by the reason of this.
I'm a real man of the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you.
So would you like to travel to all of these places?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now we are going to go into the breakout rooms, and there are 4 questions that are the 4 questions that are in the Human Family Workshop. How did the videos affect your sense of identity? Did you have experience with other ethnic groups? Did you have experience with other ethnic groups, cultures, and religious groups growing up? And was it positive or negative? There are 4 questions. The third one is, how do you react to racist sentiments? Where do you think we should draw the line between maintaining peace and condoning racism? And the last question is, how do you think we can create individual and social change towards greater appreciation and inclusion of difference? So we're going to take half an hour, and I think, Alice, did you manage to post those questions in the chat box?
Hi, yes, I did post the questions just now into the chat box. And as I know many of us are probably reflecting on the video that was just watched, but as part of the Train the Trainer session, I also wanted to bring up a really great and relevant point right now that somebody in the chat raised, and that's related to closed captioning. And so we downloaded the videos, as Sheila had mentioned, to share with you, because that omits and refrains us from having to watch the ads. But YouTube also has a great option of closed captioning, which we don't have. But closed captioning is really wonderful for the different groups that you might be working with, for anybody who might have audio processing difficulties, but then very much also for technical difficulties like we had today. Closed captioning would be helpful depending on what kind of equipment you have for your group. But also one thing that this individual brought up is the fact that closed captioning would be great on virtual meetings too. And that's really, I have to admit, for us, that's a constraint that we have because of the Zoom account type and profile that we have, so that we don't have that included in our option or our package. But if you do have the resources or another tool that could offer that option, closed captioning is great for lots of different reasons, as mentioned, but also for people of different accents who might be learning English, if the group is speaking in English, or if the group predominantly speaks in French and it's a video in English, closed captioning helps as well. So I just wanted to bring up that really important point that somebody in the chat raised. But now I will break us off into breakout rooms. There will be approximately 4 people in each room to talk about these questions. And in approximately 20 minutes or so, well, 25, is that right, Sheila?
Yes, until 2:40, so it's about 25 minutes, yep.
Okay, great, 25 minutes. And then we'll come back in the big group to talk about what you discussed.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to pass on now. Hopefully that was a good breakout session you had. And Ivan is going to welcome us back with some quotes. Are you there, Ivan?
I'm here, yes. Can you hear me? I don't know if everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we just had we had a good conversation. And it's nice to have those conversations and that dialogue. Is that if anybody is here with one of these, one of the faiths here, please, please feel free, unless you want me to read them out. And if there's anybody with their hand up that would like to read one of these.
Well, I'm not of any of those faiths, but I'd be happy to read anything you want.
Okay, I'll tell you. Why don't you read the first one?
Okay, very good. All creatures are the family of God, and he is the most beloved of God who does most good to his family. That's Islam.
Recognize all of humanity as one. Sri Guru Gobind Singh, 10th Sikh Guru.
The diversity in the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, where different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord. And that comes from the Baha'i faith, from Abdul Baha.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I think we have them all covered. I know I got a big screen here. Maybe I'm missing one. I don't know.
That's good. That's it. Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Ivan.
You're very welcome.
So, yeah, those are two. There are quotes like that, different quotes from all different religions. We mix them up. And every workshop has some, and it's just for a centering sort of thing after the debriefing, or after the small group discussions and before the debriefing. So now we're going to get into the debriefing questions, and this is a large group exercise. So we'll have 15 to 20 minutes to do these. So roughly about 10 minutes a question. And then we will pass on to comments and questions about the toolkit in general. So the first one is, what have you learned in this session and through the materials that were chosen in preparation for the workshop? Because there was homework given in advance of the workshop. And hopefully at least some people had time to look at some of that. So you can contribute to the discussion, you know, what you learned from those materials or from your breakout rooms. Feel free to put up your hand and join the discussion, or you can post something in the chat and we'll read it out, or someone will read it out. It's Linda Mulhall.
I really thank you for the design of the program. I really appreciated the pre-work and having kind of a choice of different things to read and watch. What I was really struck by was the TED Talk. And what struck me most about it was, it seems so often in anti-racist education, we focus on individual behavior, which is really important, and attitudes. But I was very struck by his emphasis on the systems and structures that promote racism. And I hope that, I mean, I'm glad to have the discussions about how we respond to things. And I hope that in the program, there's a chance to look at what are those systems and structures in our society that continue to promote racism.
Yeah, that is a significant part of the program. We tried to get into that in every workshop in the debriefing questions.
There is a
I can see.
Yes, I see Sharnath has his hand up.
Yeah. This is a good kit, educational and inspirational, and quite real suggestions are there, how we can improve and how we can reduce the racism which is already existing in the society. But I think a lot more practical suggestions are needed. It is nice to talk about the racism problems, but it has not sufficient practical suggestion how a community leader, how a religious leader, how a political leader should do something to face this problem.
Right. Does anybody have any comments about that? You know, when we did discuss that a bit when we were creating these workshops. Ivan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this is just what the previous speaker was saying about political leaders. It's unfortunate that far too many political leaders are getting traction from exacerbating the problem rather than helping to correct it. So a lot of change is going to have to start from the top. And also, it's got quite a different perspective in our discussion group that we were with. There were two of us from Vancouver Island, one person from Burnaby, and the fourth person was an African-American woman from East Tennessee who had a completely different perspective on racism than we sure did. And it was very enlightening to speak to us and cause a lot of soul searching to have her part of the group.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Rob and Sharnath, for sharing that. I just wanted to chime in here just to read out some of the comments in the chat box that are relevant to this. So Edward says that very much in this vein, his group discussion brought out an important point that racism is a product of the environment. So whether it's the political leaders, religious leaders, different people who part of this conversation, we're all part of the environment. So that connects as well. Sherry said she also really enjoyed the TED Talk and would encourage everyone to review that resource if you didn't get to beforehand. And then John shares that from the people in his group he met in the breakout room, there was discussion of how we might act in better ways. So that kind of relates to what the first individual said. I think it was Linda, of what can we do? What can we do? Not just individual, but what can we do?
Right. Yeah, and you know, it's part of the workshops, but it's asked in the sense that everybody is going to have different, a different capacity and a different situation. So we will all be able to affect that kind of change in our own way and in our own circumstances. And really, all change begins with the individual. So there will be many, many different ways that will happen, but at least in the workshops, it does get discussed. You know, what can we do? Any other comments, or anything else that you happen to watch in your pre-workshop materials that you really enjoyed, perhaps? It'd be interesting to hear about that. Oh, Gita.
I think Christine was first, but I'll go. I really enjoy the balance that you have struck between mind and heart, between knowledge, information, and also the spiritual connection that one needs to have in order for anything to shift, and on an individual and societal level. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And in terms of what I learned, I both in our discussions and in the readings and everything that in preparation to coming here, I really have this strong sense that there is a general hunger in society and tremendous receptivity in learning about racism, unlike what we think, because the ones who are loud are the ones that are burning the torches, and calling for white supremacy. But I think generally, on the whole, humanity is not just ready, but is just thirsty for knowing, learning, and then knowing, approaches on how to address it. We all know that this racism is a social construct. It's not real. And so I think that's one thing. And the second thing I'm learning is, especially in the news in the United States particularly, it's very pronounced, is the politicization of racism. And to Linda's point earlier, how systems play a role in that. So systemic racism needs to be really addressed. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thanks, Gita. I see that there are comments in the chat box too, but how about we go ahead with Christine first?
Yeah, I really agree a lot with what Gita said as well. And just even going to even more so from the structures and that, just one of the things that in the homework that really struck with me is all the different ways that the golden rule, it's the same message, and it kind of goes back to underneath our outward appearance, we are all the same. We are learning the same. We come from the same DNA, as we learned from the opening videos as well. And if we are all giving the same message and we're all following the same, then there should be hope if we can just get past a lot of the, like you said, the politicization and the structures that are put in place by some people, people to keep that going, because they're the ones benefiting from it. And in our discussion in the breakout, we talked about how the younger generation is really giving us hope, and we're learning from them that as being part of an older generation where we're told to just put our head down and not say anything, is that no, we need to get past that, and we really need to allow ourselves to sit with that discomfort and get uncomfortable and have those conversations and lead by the example of our youth in doing that.
Right. Speaking of that, there was a comment, I saw it in the breakout room. I can't see it right now. I mean, in the chat, it was talking about the importance of getting this into schools. And that was also a comment in our breakout room that it's far easier to teach anti-racism to children, you know, because they're young. They haven't learned any negative beliefs or behaviors yet. And we did get an email, now Sheena, was it you? In Richmond, you know, saying the same thing. It's very important for this to get into the schools.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate this. This is extremely rich resource, and I did reach out to you obviously earlier because I was already so impressed, and absolutely the hope is in our kids, and our kids are way are actually just great, to be honest with you. And so what we do is we approach it to also obviously with our teachers, because they're the ones that are spending the most time with our kids, sometimes more so than the families and their parents. So we're doing a lot of work with our teachers because we know that they need some help in sort of catching up to really where our kids are and to support them ongoing.
So there are other hands. I'm trying to decide how we should do this because there's so many comments in the chat, but there are also hands up. Who was first here? There was D. Young. I think you might have been first.
Okay, I was actually going to put my hand down and put it in the chat, but I'll be quick. The one thing that we've discovered as we've been having conversations about racism at my agency is that using a trauma-informed lens is really, really important, particularly as we try to counsel and support individuals who may have experienced racism in their lives. And the thing that I hadn't quite thought about as carefully as I should have, and I've learned to, is that many of our staff have also experienced trauma as a result of racism. So to what extent that's impacting their capacity to actually contribute fully at work, how much of that they're carrying with them. So just, I don't know what's in your package of materials, Sheila, that may speak to that. And but that I just want to share that learning with everybody.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting question, and it wasn't one actually that we dealt with directly, at least not that I can remember. So an interesting point. Yeah. Mary Mack, would you like to go next?
I think she's on mute.
Oh yeah, you're on mute, Mary.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I grew up in a very white neighborhood. We were all Catholics, but I live in an immigrant city where wave after wave of immigrant has come to the city. Irish, then Greek, German, and in more recent years, Southeast Asian countries and African countries. And so I've been learning as I go and interacting with, you know, different people with different cultures, different races. I really enjoy it. But, and our city does promote diversity. They have an African festival. They have a Southeast Asian longboat race every year. There's a number of social justice groups in the city. But how do you deal with the opposition? All these people who are talking about critical race theory, and you know, you can't teach things to our kids when all you're doing is teaching real history and real biology. How do you deal with that? What are the practical ways of dealing with that?
Great. Does anybody have a response to that question?
think as an early childhood educator, there are ways around critical race theory. There are ways to implement the nice version. And I think that's really where the issue is. We don't want our kids to know, or some people don't want their kids to know the actuality. And they think too, when they're really young, like 3 and 4 year olds, that they do not know. They don't know the difference between races, which is, according to researchers, truly it is wrong. So I think as teachers, as parents, as grandparents, there is a way that you will need to do it the nice way, but it needs to be, the children need to know the truth. Oftentimes in early childhood, I would suggest reading picture books. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Project 1609, but it has a children's version of Project 1609. And it's a children's book. It has the pictures, and you don't have to read every word for word, but you can kind of give your version of it to your kids. Teachers can give their version. It doesn't have to be word for word. Because you have the pictures, just tell a different story, or tell the story how you want. I think that critical race theory was thrown out there by our past president, and it went a different way. Critical race theory is not the way that it has been presented. But I think that it is very important, as Ms. Mack said, this is reality, and it's very important. And there are ways to get it out there through picture books, through storytelling, through just films. I mean, they have these films and things, and people, you show your children different pictures or different movies, just let them watch it and let them answer questions truthfully. But I always say it starts with, you got to take out a mirror and decide where you're right and what are you really wanting to say. You have to do a critical self-reflection that this is what I am trying to get out. So
right,
that's just my take.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And especially when you're talking about how many resources are out there, it is absolutely amazing. Thanks for mentioning the 1609 project. I think it was the New York Times that put that out, and they made a website and just gave it as a gift to the public, and it's absolutely wonderful. I don't, with all of the resources there, I don't remember if it actually made it into the toolkit or not, but it's good to know about. We were really so impressed with the quantity and the quality of the material that's been produced. And it was, sometimes the hard part was just choosing which ones to put in the workshops. Okay, I see another hand there, Makita.
Hi, I know Mary's hand is up, but
Mary, did you mean to have your
I should go first?
Yeah, I think Mary already spoke, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I
Well,
did. Thank you.
Okay. I live in Virginia, in the place where they've been showing on Fox News over and over again, people screaming at the school board meeting in Loudoun County. I wasn't one of the people at the school board meeting. My mother called me from Michigan and said, "Do you see what's going on in your county?" And so I had to look up from my work, where I'm kind of in the zone, and turn on the news and see what was happening. They never taught a class called Critical Race Theory in Loudoun County. I've lived here for, I guess about 10 years. I have 3 kids who went through the school system here. So I really didn't know what all of the uproar was about. I was perfectly happy before they banned critical race theory in Virginia, and they have done that now. The new governor did. I think one thing that we have to do is get rid of some of the ambiguity around the phrase. A lot of the people who were complaining at the school board, they seem to have a different concept of critical race theory than I do. And so they're very passionate about it, but I feel like they aren't really that educated about it, how it started. Kimberly Crenshaw, she was one of the academics who created it, the fact that it's a law school course. And in addition to there being so much confusion about what do people really mean when they're talking about critical race theory, we need to get pretty granular and figure out what exactly are you complaining about? Because from my perspective, they're teaching values like equity, fairness, treating others with respect. As Catherine was saying, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood type of principles that are appropriate for elementary school kids and all the way up. And, you know, most people wouldn't object to that. But the other thing that happened was they conflated critical race theory with some story about a transgender person who went into a bathroom and raped someone. And at that point, there's no logic. People are just speaking viscerally. They're screaming, how could you object? How could you want critical race theory? That's not what it's about. You're not even talking about race at this point. Yet there's no logic anymore. And, you know, of course it needs to be banned. And how could you say it shouldn't need to be banned? Everybody needs to calm down, get really specific about what it is that you're objecting to. Because, you know, maybe you wouldn't really object if you really knew more about what it is that other people mean when they say critical race theory. And if there's some elements that you object to, then let's separate those from the rest of it, which is really about anti-racism.
Right.
And what I have to say.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Those are really good points. So I'm just noticing the time now. We've just got about 20 minutes left altogether, and I wanted to leave some time for comments and questions about the toolkit itself. I saw that somebody posted in the chat that the toolkit is available on our website. I can also send it as a PDF if you want, and I could send that to the whole list if that's helpful. There's a participant's guide, participant's copy, facilitator's guide, and there's a brochure on the toolkit, just to give an overview. So do people have, you know, now that we think we've covered the basics, are there questions about, you know, how this works, or more things that you would need to know about it in order to start a group?
Lucinda.
So Lucinda?
Yeah, she has to unmute herself there.
Sorry. Going back to the idea that the younger, the better, our church is hoping to do something like this in this coming year. What we have a particular idea that youth would be a really good place. And do you think that this program can be like it seemed today like it would be, but could it be fully the right thing to do for the youth, like to get the connection?
Yeah, it depends on the age maybe, but the youngest reviewer that we had was 12 years old. And the impression I got just from that one review was that she would like to have something more active, and perhaps it was just too much discussing, but I'm sure it could be adapted. And the audiovisual material could be used for just about any group. You might have to adapt the questions a little bit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ivan, I'll leave it to you.
Hello, yeah. I just wrote a series of comments here on the chat. I don't know if everybody read it. in our group discussion, one important point that's pointed out by, I guess, by Lucinda is that racism is a product of the environment. And then I wrote another comment, to try to counteract racism, education is needed in schools, as I had a very good English and social studies teacher who taught against racism. And he was a World War II vet, and he knew the horrors of the Nazi, Hitler, or what happened in Europe. And then I also wrote further down here, anybody heard of institutional racism occurred in the past by ruling class and the upper classes to divide the society between the very rich and the rest down to the poorer classes in order to enslave them, or just like slavery. And then fast forward to the present day with 4 years of Donald Trump, who used racism and divided the American society. And he also did business with Putin for a long time in real estate development that propped up the Putin regime, which may be the cause of the Ukrainian war, as Putin is known as an anti-Semite and a racist. And there are ties with the American neo-Nazis, KKK, and white supremacists, with Russian white supremacist groups with ties and support to Putin's regime. Probably no coincidence with Putin's invasion of Ukraine. We see this once again, shockingly, less than 100 years from World War II, with Hitler attacking Poland and now Putin attacking Ukraine, as a result of extreme racism once again. I guess, I don't know if my high school English and social studies teachers are still alive or not, but you'll be really upset, and they probably knew this is not a surprise at all. So what's your comments here? I wrote a whole bunch of them, because racism could end up in a world war, just as we've seen in the last century.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they're very practical.
Look at what's happening now. It's happening before our eyes. The destruction is, it's in color, not in black and white, as we can see similarities between destruction in Europe, World War II, and destruction in Ukraine. Only thing is, it's live and in color now.
Yeah.
Power is an aphrodisiac for leaders. And the more resources that they have, the more, this is also a war of natural resources. And, just, we talk about gold, we talk about black gold, we talk about all these things. You got more resources, you got more money, you got more power, you got more ammo. And, at people's expense, it's one of them nasty things is. And then as a person who is indigenous on this continent and in my home country, could comment on a lot of stuff, but quick comment on with respect to working with the leaders. I sent some pictures out there, and I said a lot of work has been done with respect to reaching out to your local leaders, reaching out, having conversations, not necessarily indigenous, but multicultural, embracing each other's culture, rather just living in a blue jean leather jacket culture and running shoes. Everybody I always encourage people to embrace your own culture. Embrace it, no matter what culture, what background, embrace it, appreciate it. That's reconciliation on all levels. But, to take and to reach out as an indigenous person to, we've got a leader who is Shirley Bond, who is a leader. She honored her with a drum. She comes out to our drum circles and our cultural circles. And she's the MLA. She was also the leader of the Liberal Party before there was another person. That's reaching out. How do we do this? Well, we reach out to each other. We embrace each other. And that's, that's, to the difference is there's really no difference, reaching out to Todd Doherty, who's the MP for the region, now is a good friend. Doesn't matter what party you're from. So just representing the local city council. A big part of my job was to be a bridge within all levels, to help bridge that understanding that we can do things, have friends and delegates in Rome right now. Can't wait for them to come back and have some conversation. But we also have to reach out to each other. We have to reach out in our communities, within the school system. We have enhancement agreements that are brand spanking new, back to 2015 when there was no land-based education, to actually bring the community to the land so they can have an understanding of working with the elders, being part of reconciliation. The last residential school was closed in 1996. Having a conversation with the federal government for planning and setting some templates in place. No reconciliation did not start yesterday. It started years ago with red pages and white pages and the Healing Foundation and setting wheels in motion right across the country. A lot of work has been done, but we have to continue, and we have to support each other and continue to have these conversations. Race, is a diversity in our teachings means we're all part of oneness, we embrace the all directions and all matter and all people. Is that we have the reason why we say all my relations in the Cree culture. It's because we're all related, we're all interconnected by DNA, by matter, by energy. It is that we're all the children of the Son, the children of the Creator, the children of Yahweh, so on and so forth. We embrace all religions, cultures. What matters most is love. Love is what connects us all at that level, at that cellular level that we all need, that level of light and sound. Well, that's and then all we can do is we can pray for Ukraine and the people. We're doing a lot of work with some of the first people that came over. The fathers in the black robes were Ukrainian. We have to embrace them, and so that's working with the Ukrainian community right now. Is that they know, and they're at risk of losing their own culture. So our culture is actually supporting, helping them embrace that, because that's what we did when they first contacted. Preliminary to any residential schools. We're coming back as brothers and sisters back to that sacred place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the important thing is we have to learn with each other and from each other, right? These workshops, they may have facilitators, but everybody is going to be responsible for learning themselves, right? We're all in charge of our own learning. And the question we didn't get to today was what needs to change in us in society, but it's in all of the workshops. Alice, I wonder if you could show the next, because it's past 3:20 now. We just have a few more minutes, and there's just a couple more slides, just to bring everything together.
Before we get to the next slides, I just wanted to address some of the one question that Tim brought up in the chat. And it's probably a question that others might have in terms of the licensing fees for the tool, how to use it, when to use it. Clearly from our conversation today, this discussion brings in people from around the world, not just in BC, really from the US, from all parts of Canada, and probably can help a lot of other individuals too. So if you would like to, and we can see in the chat, wonderful interest from lots of different people sharing their emails, interested in collaboration, willing to use a tool. If you would like to use a tool, just keep in mind that we are following a Creative Commons licensing, and I put that link in there. And the licensing is that it's attribution. When you use this tool, attribute it to those who created it. It's non-commercial, so whenever you use it, it's not for commercial purposes. And that derivatives are perfectly fine. You can change it if you like to build on the tool, use the ideas to adapt for the groups that you belong to and that you're working with. But in terms, just to clarify that the fees portion, the non-commercial purposes of the tool is that it's not to be used for any commercial purposes to make a profit from. However, we know, and to Dee Young's point earlier about the trauma that individuals who facilitate may have gone through themselves, and that conversation like this might trigger realistically. We do highly encourage, if you have somebody who comes to facilitate, if you have the budget, please share an honorarium with them, because that is available as part of the Creative Commons licensing that we have. It's not it's just that you can't charge hourly if you're a consultant, for example. Just putting it very simply and bluntly, not charge hourly for this type of work. However, those who you're working with can very much, and we encourage it, show appreciation for the work that you have done. So that's the licensing that we have. Tim also asked about PowerPoint slides. We aren't creating any beyond what you see today, but whatever resources you see on the toolkit itself, the links, the images from the toolkit, feel free to use that and share that for free with whoever you're working with. If you have any other questions about the licensing, please let me know, but those are the main details.
And I wonder, would it be worthwhile to save the chat and perhaps send at least parts of it out to the people who are here today? Because we have everyone's email from Eventbrite, so that it's easy to send out an email to everybody with pertinent information.
Unfortunately, I can't save this chat. It's not an option I have with my Zoom account. Again, it's a limitation I have. So I do encourage you, if you see email address that really you'd like to collaborate with that person, please write it down. But otherwise, we will be emailing the toolkit itself, and then also the link to this recording to your email that you registered with.
Great. Okay, and the website addresses, are they in the chat right now?
Yes, they were. I added them earlier, but we can, again, you'll receive them by email. So everybody will get access to our websites and the resources.
Perfect, perfect. So I don't know if we need to, we've got 5 minutes. Do we need to do the last 2 slides?
Yep.
Are there any last questions that anybody has? Last questions or comments?
If nobody has any questions, well, we see people here saying thank you. So thank you for joining us. We will be ending with a video to kind of conclude our time together. And when you receive the package, there will be, as we mentioned, the participants toolkit portion, as well as the facilitators toolkit portion, which actually does speak a bit to supporting and self-care for those who are facilitating. So to Dee Young's point about trauma, again, there is some information in there, as well as a glossary. This conversation today, I just wanted to add, the glossary doesn't talk about critical race theory, but clearly there's a lot in there to unpack, and there was a link sent in the chat about that, and understand what it means in different contexts. Even for those American attendees who joined today, thank you so much for sharing that perspective and helping us understand what it means in the US. It is different here in Canada and different communities. So I encourage you to really read a bit more about that as well, because we don't have that specific detail in our glossary.
Thanks to everybody for coming today and participating, and for all of those great comments that I'm seeing there. That's really wonderful. So wonderful to see the enthusiasm and the encouragement. It's great. So should we move to the last song, and hope you like it? We'll say, oh, and if you think it would be useful to have another one of these,
put up your hand.
Introduction. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should repeat this at another point. Okay, thank you again.
Well, I think before I play the video, actually, I know I think Ivan has something to say, and then I'll play the video. And after the video, if anyone wants to hang around, please feel free to hang around. I'll stop the recording after the video, but we can chat afterwards.
Just want to, my Cree name is Muske Sioux Napio from the Cree Nation, and from the Northern Alberta Woodlands Cree. I've been working with Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people for many years. I'm supposed to be in Hollywood. I keep teasing everybody and making movies and all sorts of stuff, but I'm getting back there. when I'm working with the people. But you know, something that comes to heart and comes to mind when I'm working and facilitating in communities is that we all share this. We all share this. We just don't talk about it. You know, and we have to continue moving and having these conversations, especially with the awareness that we have today. You know, it has brought everything to light, and to know that we can, the more we reveal it, the more we can heal it and move on, and to make our countries having, you know, with respect to visitors from the United States, that we can move together in a good way. It's always in a good way, and not backwards, but clockwise. You know, from this day forward, you know, let's, you know, and the information we gather, we learn from each other. You know, we learn from each other, we learn from one another, and it's been an honor to sit with all of you today. With Sheila has become a friend, and Alice, a good friend. You know, I take you here with me when I have these conversations with my people. So I thank you all and bless your day, and move forward in a good way. Hi.